they know what they're promoting is so despicable
Of
and
course they do.
unlikable that they're insecure about it.
Of
and
course they are.
They just feel kind of like they didn't know that they were going to get fired by being a
They-
racist
look,
fucking piece of shit.
Yes, they did. They're masochists. They want that abuse. That's the
Right.
rejection that they desire.
Right, it's this desire for victimization. Like
Exactly.
I'm a white guy, and why do all of the minorities and women get to be victims all the time? It's like, you know what those people don't want to be? Those people who are oppressed and are victims, they don't want to be victims. Why do you want to be a victim? Just pay 25 bucks a session to get your ass beat by a woman in fucking knee highs. Like, it's not that hard.
No, if they could come to grips with that, with their
it's
bank,
probably more like 125 bucks a session. But yeah,
if they could come to grips with their bank accounts enough to to part with that cash, that would be money well spent.
And you know what would help with that is a universal income. And that's the one thing they're most afraid of. But the government could be putting money in your pocket every month that you put towards getting your ass beat to feel like the piece of shit you know you are. But you don't want big government.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
What show is this?
American Splendor.
I was gonna say the Grande Bouffe.
Oh, right. Yeah. Did you see this? There was a thing. I don't know. I can't remember if it was Thrillist or IndieWire or who did it, but there was or BuzzFeed. It was BuzzFeed, and like, how French are you? And Le Grande Bouffe was one of the answers.
Oh, to know what the Le Grande Bouffe is?
Yeah.
I'd say I'm pretty fucking French. I hate.
I know. I thought it was great that they gave us a shout out on BuzzFeed like that.
Can't thanks BuzzFeed. Yeah, they meant the podcast, not the movie, right?
Right. Yeah. I gotta look. We want all of our listeners to look it up. I haven't looked it up myself. I heard about this secondhand, and I've been meaning to go search.
Was it how French are you, or how much are you personal friends with Mike and Cole? If you recognize Le Grande Bouffe.
Yeah, I'm gonna look it up while we're chatting. Introduce us to our beer, Mike.
We are drinking Alphabet City from the wonderful brewery. Wait, hold on. I'm sorry. This is from Alphabet City Brewing Company, and it's their Village India Pale Ale. Their branding is got me all over the place over what is the actual brewery and what is this beer, but this is an Indian Pale Ale. It is skunky. It is quite different from the last IPA that we just drank. This one is coming in at a 8 point. Is this a 2 or a 9? It's a little dark in here. 6.2. All right.
Oh man, you had me going for a minute. I was saying 8 point, man. I'm gonna drink it quick. Hey, look at this. We're watching American Splendor, and there's our new version. I think Urbanak is the actor's name, playing Robert Crumb.
Robert Crumb, as our faithful listeners will know, this is a two-parter in essence. Last week we talked about Crumb, the Terry Zwigoff documentary about Robert Crumb, the countercultural psychedelic illustrator.
You know what we didn't have for the Robert Crumb podcast?
This skunky ass IPA.
We did not have a Robert Crumb bobblehead, but we do have the wonderful Harvey Picar bobblehead, which I got when I was in Cannes in 2004 when this film came out. And I saw the screening of American Splendor, and Harvey Picar and his family were sitting right behind me.
Selling swag.
They were giving it away. They were happy for everyone to have it. No, he was the opposite of the malcontent that you see in this movie. He was so happy.
Yeah.
The movie got a standing ovation. Everybody clapped, and he and his family stood up, and he was the happiest guy. And it was one of those, it really brought a tear to your eye. It was just such a sweet moment at the Cannes Film Festival when American Splendor premiered, and it was very heartwarming thing. All right, so we're going to talk about BuzzFeed. It's the can you pace? Is this it? I hope this is it. Can you pace? Can you pass this basic French test? Can you pace? Waiter, there is too much pepper on my. Well, no, that's something else.
Gosh.
But I would be proud to partake of your pecan pie. Oh my goodness, is it gonna have it? Is this the right BuzzFeed quiz?
I'm gonna let you in. There's a lot of BuzzFeed quizzes out there.
I know.
You can make one yourself.
Oh, you can?
Yeah, it's their IP is unprotected, as it were.
Really? Oh well, you know what that means. I have to Google Le Grande Bouffe and BuzzFeed.
Well, let's get into what this movie is, and
Yeah.
I'll try to define it genre-wise because it's a little between things.
It's awesome.
It is a biopic. It is a narrative film about the life of the comic book writer Harvey Pekar, who was noteworthy because he wrote these underground comics that were actually about regular life throughout his career. He died in 2010, I believe, but throughout his career, he kept a regular job as a file clerk at a VA hospital. He was the definition of an everyman, and his comics were about everyday life. They're about doing the dishes. They were about waiting in line behind old Jewish ladies.
And the beauty of his comics is that he wrote the stuff, but he had other people draw them, and the way that this all began was through his friendship with Robert Crumb.
Yeah, it's one of these things where you hear about this writer and that writer, this musician, that were friends, and you hear enough of those stories and you realize that talent and creativity doesn't happen entirely in a vacuum. So many great actors went to high school together, were roommates at NYU and stuff like that. You really see that Cole is showing me this still from the movie Le Grande Bouffe, and it's a creme brulee with a spoon breaking into it.
What named the film from the screenshot? Oh, it's surprise. Le Grande Bouffe, the big feast.
That's tight.
I have to say that creme brulee is one of my favorite desserts. I love it. It's nothing but sugar and eggs, but it's great.
Sugar and eggs. But you know what I'm saying? This phenomenon where so many artists, you find out, went to high school together, were roommates at one point. There is enough evidence, I feel, to say that when someone has that talent and that drive to hit it big, that either they associate themselves with people who have that similar X factor, or there's something contagious about it.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I love how they play it in the movie because you when you're watching the movie, Paul Giamatti, by the way, I think it's the best thing Paul Giamatti's ever done. He is so awesome as Harvey Pekar. He's such a malcontent. This is not a guy who you're going to have a comfortable time hanging out with, but he's interesting. And so we have to double check who's playing Robert Crumb, but you expect the Robert Crumb character to take a look at these little stick drawings with this just very pedestrian experience that Pekar is writing, and you expect him to say, what the fuck is this? But Crumb, he takes to it immediately. He says, this is good. This is good.
This is great.
Yeah.
You really got something.
And that's how the relationships begin, and that's how American Splendor begins. And they don't really put a fine point on it in the movie about how he uses how he finds these different artists.
Well, they do mention it.
They mention it.
And they don't,
but in an offhand way about, where the woman says, "Oh, some of these artists draw you this way, and some of these artists draw you like this."
It's an interesting sequence, actually. They don't go into him discovering these different artists and then depicting them different ways. His future wife is waiting to meet him, and we see her at the airport, and she's looking around, and she sees these animated, hand-drawn different versions of him and is looking for the real him to appear. And I think that expressed this nebulous ground that interpretation puts on. And to take a step back about what this film is, I introduced it as a narrative film, a biopic. I think you could get away with calling it a documentary as well, because unlike a lot of movies that are portraying someone's life, you have the actual people, not just the main character, Harvey Pekar, but you have his wife, you have some of his friends appearing in a documentary format, and it is, in essence, playing off of the idea that his comic book is a autobiographical extension of his real life. And what it does is it makes you feel that this movie is another issue of the comic book, an anthology, as it were. and that they
Well,
and that they stepped into their own medium. It feels less like these filmmakers,
Yeah.
which I think is the case that these filmmakers approached him,
Yeah.
but they did it in this very conscientious and inclusive way that this movie feels like a different medium of the comic, which is about his life, called American Splendor.
Right. It has this great call and response quality to it. I do want to point out that Hope Davis plays the woman who becomes his wife, Joyce Brabner. I also want to say that it was directed by Shari Springer Berman and Robert Pulcini, and they're the ones who devised this great format that you never will see ever again.
It's so well executed.
It is so exquisitely executed. This is a movie unlike any other movie, and I loved it when I saw it in Cannes. And sadly, Mike and I were both exposed to it again through a very low-res version that's playing on YouTube currently. But it's just so satisfying the way that they blend Harvey Pekar with Paul Giamatti. We get to see both of them, and so there's this great call and response aspect. There's scenes where they do this thing where it's on a soundstage, and you see Paul Giamatti watching the actor watching Pekar, and he's watching him as an actor, but he's also watching him as Harvey Pekar.
And that set design is so fascinating because it is in this negative white soundstage, which is designed, we later realized, to be like the blank white page of a piece of computer paper that you're drawing your stick figures on. But it's also
real paper, not computer paper.
Right. It's just like this 8x11 though.
Yeah.
But it's also a step into the realm of the movie. They take pieces of the actual set that they shoot the film on, place it in this space full of negative white background, so it feels like a piece of paper. And so there's three elements that I'm seeing. One, the comic book, which is an alluded to space, and we see it in the form of
frames.
Pieces of paper.
And in bubbles that come up, speech bubbles that come up.
Two
bubbles.
Is the real world, quote unquote, of the film, which is actual on location sets. I wonder if they were. I don't know, but you get the sense that may have actually been his real workspace at the VA hospital filing office. And then
I think it was probably a set, but they do a great job with it.
And then they give you this space that's right in this liminal place between it. And this is the exact sequence where you're talking about. You see Paul Giamatti and Judah Freelander, who's playing his friend who has autism, and they are watching them interact. And so you have pieces of the set, but on this
Judah Freelander, who plays Toby.
Excellent, really interesting.
Nerd. He is a nerd. He takes pride in being a nerd.
This is my first time seeing this movie in full, and when Judah Freelander started doing that character, it was like it was a little offensive, over the top. And then they show you Toby, and you realize that he's doing the spitting image, the perfect replica, and Toby himself, the real person, is fully in the film. And they also cut away at different points to take it to another level of integration. Harvey Pekar became exposed to the American public through his David Letterman appearances.
Yeah.
And you realize that that's in essence how he became who he is to a mass audience.
Right.
And they use the actual clips from some of those shows, and I have some backstory that I'll get into. Later.
Yeah, they use the actual clips except for one.
Yeah, exactly. I think I read the same article as you. Yeah,
I didn't read the same. I just noticed in the movie, but I'm curious about the article because I'm sure there was a legal reason they couldn't use that.
There's a reason they didn't want to.
What is it? Tell us.
Okay, so we'll get into it now. So, let's set it up.
Let's set it up a little bit because it has a lot to do with what's going on in his relationship with his wife. Because there's been this very fraught experience where his wife has fallen into a depression. She sleeps all the time, and he's trying to break her out of it. And this guy's a pill. If ever you want to know the Oxford definition of a pill, this guy is a pill. This is not a guy who's ever going to have a good day. He has bad
What
days
is
every day.
his wife Joyce, who was originally a fan and started writing him letters.
Yeah, she worked in she was a co-owner, right, for a comic book store.
Comic book store. She writes him letters and they start talking and he
And
eventually,
again, just like with the Crumb thing,
right?
he has attracted his kind through his art.
It's the secret, man. You just put it out there. You just say what you want and it comes.
It
dude.
comes to you. Yeah. Very true.
She visits.
That is the moral of these two movies.
They go on one date and a bunch of things go wrong. He seems very anxious. She winds up getting sick. It seems like it's maybe going terribly, and she opens the door and she has this exasperated look on her face, and she looks at him and she says, "Harvey, let's not what it's essentially like, Harvey, let's just skip the courtship and get married on their first date."
And Hope Davis is terrific in the role too. Everybody in this movie is great, but I just want to give props to Hope Davis because
Next level.
she's so
I looked
great.
at her IMDb and she's been in far fewer things of note than she should be. She's fantastic.
I know. I
in this.
agree. I think she's a much better actress than some actresses who will go unnamed.
Okay. Jennifer Lawrence. And so
Shot across the bow of Darren Aronofsky.
give me Hope Davis in, was it Mother any day?
We haven't seen Mother yet.
I
You
haven't
can't
seen
say
Mother.
that. I think Mother's going to be great.
I think Hope Davis would have. No, I don't know, man. So these Letterman appearances.
Tilda Swinton. You got some competition. If Hope Davis could take every Tilda Swinton role, I'm just saying.
Now these are some shots being fired.
That's right. Well, we get down to business on the Grande Bouffe. We don't mess around.
I don't know if I agree with these.
I
two
do.
Tilda
I do. I think
shots.
Hope Davis is a much better actress than Tilda Swinton. Take
Wow.
that motherfucker.
Wow. So I think these beers are kicking in. So these Letterman appearances play a really seminal role, it seems, in Harvey Picar's life, because the underground comic scene, though a big deal to a subculture that I'm not really exposed to, I wasn't alive for,
Mhm.
but he doesn't hit it big without much external publicity, in essence, like Crumb did. Crumb was the exception to the rule of you're going to draw for your bread. You're going to basically just barely make a living. Crumb hit a next level and had fame and
It sold
a
6 of
large
his
income.
sketches in order to buy a house in the south of France. Now, this
Right.
movie is much more working class, and I really love that aspect of this film is that it is about working class Ohio and the ugliness of America.
But you know what's fascinating that I wonder how realistic it is that Harvey Picar turns his life and his experiences, the people around him, into characters and puts judgments onto them. But the movie, whether this is true to life or not, does not portray those people ever at any point. Correct me if I'm wrong. Being offended by this, feel like that they're being objectified, they're being diminished.
They appreciate it. We still got to go back to that Letterman thing. You kind of let that ball drop.
I'm like it's just sort of late in the film. I want to like flesh out the details.
All right. I just want to make sure we don't neglect
it. I don't want to set up too much to being that interesting, but
it's interesting.
But the role that he's playing for the people around him is a fascinating one, where you'd think the story might be that he's a bit of an egomaniac, and that because he's expressing all of these strong
He works
opinions,
at the Department of Veterans Affairs Medical Center
these strong opinions of people around him, that
in the 80s.
there'd be at least one scene where people are like, "Fuck you, Harvey, am I gonna wind up in your comic book?" But they don't show any piece like that. And if that is an element of his reality, it's at least absent from this portrayal of what this meant to the people around him. And I find that fascinating.
Okay, so let's talk about his trail to success, because it's true that he is discovered. He gets the call to come on the Letterman show,
Right.
and this is at a really low ebb with his relationship with his new wife. They've been together maybe 9 months or something, and she's just in a deep funk. But lo and behold, he gets this gig where they get to come up. I guess they fly them up to New York. He stays at the Warwick Hotel.
Warwick.
By the way, the same hotel where the Beatles stayed during their first. I don't know if you know this, but when the Beatles came to New York for the first time, stayed at the Warwick Hotel on 6th Avenue, aka Avenue of the Americas.
So this was when Letterman was on NBC before he went to CBS.
Yeah, it's the 80s.
Which one was the Ed Sullivan Theater? What do you know? What network Ed Sullivan was on?
I think he was on CBS.
He was CBS. Oh, I think the later Letterman was that. So I was just wondering if it was, that was part of the.
I only remember that because I remember my dad having a heart attack during the Ed Sullivan Show on a Saturday night.
Oh, really?
Yeah. My dad, who was
thought you meant that as a euphemism.
No. My dad had a heart attack. He was a chain smoker, and we were watching the Ed Sullivan Show, and it was a Saturday night, and he had a heart attack, and I thought he was dead.
Jesus.
Yeah, it was frightening as fuck.
What was on the Ed Sullivan Show?
I don't know, but I just, like you remember details like that, when you're having that experience. I was like 10 or something. I was young. Yeah.
So, I'm just processing. Anyway, and I'm done. And so he's invited on the Letterman show, the NBC version, and his wife Joyce tries to change the channel to the news. Just watch coverage of the Iran.
Yeah, she's sitting in the green room and she's
trying to watch something about the Iran Contra hearings.
Yeah.
It's so funny. And so she is.
But she snaps out of her depression. He's bringing in some money. And they, I don't know if you know this, but, anytime you get invited onto one of those shows, the Tonight Show or whatever, they pay everyone the same. And it's scale. So I don't know what it is today. I'm imagining it's something around like maybe $1,500.
But you're making what George Clooney's making.
Everybody gets paid the same thing. Yeah. Right. So like you get your $800 and that's your pay.
I bet George Clooney is also being paid by Paramount to promote The Monuments Men or something, right?
Could be.
Because he's on the clock for them too.
Could be. Yeah, well, he's already been paid. That's just in the contract.
Well, yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
This does seem like a big deal for them. It continues, though. She's excited about this, but Joyce, who's enters into his comic books, enters into his world, and we see someone who's a bit self-absorbed and complaining, grappling with the fact that someone else's desires matter to him, and that he wants to make her happy, and being alone from her, being away from her makes him miserable.
Yeah. We're not quite there yet. Yeah, because the relationship between he and Letterman is funny.
Oh, so it was a bit like, do you, let me ask, do you remember Harvey Pekar being on the Letterman show?
I did not see those episodes when they aired, but in the movie, and I did watch a lot of Letterman, and I was watching, speaking of traumatic things that happened, I remember I was living,
what the fuck,
I was living in San Francisco at the corner of 44th and Moraga, and I was watching David Letterman, and it was the worst car crash that I have ever experienced in my life. This car ran the stop sign, and no, it was a truck. Sorry, it was a pickup truck, and it hit a Volvo, and the woman in the Volvo had her child was strapped, her baby was strapped into the baby seat in the thing, and what happened was.
Why are you making me?
I got to tell you this story, man. It's a story
because
this guy. Listen, it was Letterman was on, and it was a Toyota. The guy was driving a Toyota pickup, and listen, he hit the front of the Volvo so that the Volvo spun around 180. And I lived out by the ocean. This is about 8 blocks from the ocean, and the Toyota flipped over on the front. And I watched the guy from I lived in a house. I rented the whole house, and I was out on my second floor balcony looking to see if I was going to have to run down. And this guy, I watched him climb out of the back window of his Toyota pickup truck. Miraculously, this guy has survived. This guy must have been going, I don't know, 45 or 50. The woman was probably going 30. He was fine. Oh. He was fine. And to the testament of Volvos, miraculously, the Volvo
with the baby in it,
facing now 180 degrees in the direction that it had been traveling, everyone was fine.
Oh my god!
All right, there's another.
That was
there's,
a roller
there's
coaster.
another little television related
So
story.
don't watch the Letterman program if you're in.
But Letterman
1987.
and Picard have this comical relationship.
Well, it's next level. It's actually so I watched a bunch of clips on YouTube, and it truly is a bit outrageous, and it makes you appreciate that Letterman was a bit of a wild card back in the day. To me, he was always the epitome of just hack sellout shit, although less so than Jay Leno. But no, I think and Cole, you're shaking your head at me, but he
was a pro.
right, but
And he was notorious.
You understand
people thought that he was nasty, that he was sarcastic and stuff, which he was, but he was a pro.
I've come to appreciate the role that he played in comedy and late night television. But as someone born in 1990, David Letterman was not any sort of.
I grew up with Johnny Carson, who was
Right.
the immaculate pro.
Right.
Johnny Carson was the Bugs Bunny of late night.
But so there is something real edgy.
Letterman
and
was the Woody
interesting
the Woodpecker.
about these are good. Yeah, I think you're on it. Yeah. And so, but Picard and him, like Picard calls his shit, and you kind of see like Letterman get into this masochistic, like, okay, you want to go, like, you want to get like, it's like, all right, yeah, you shit on me, but then he gets back at him, and he had Picard on, I think 4 or 5 times within a year's span, which is very different than the way that any of these shows are run now. They seem so just trying to make sure that the latest celebrities putting their thing out. You didn't have any, like, Picard is like, though he's a professional comic book writer, he's on the show because he gives Letterman shit.
Yeah.
You know, you're not going to get away with that going on Kimmel or something. Kimmel's not going to, like, have someone who just makes Kimmel look like a piece of shit.
No, Picard's a loose cannon. He's a
that's what they
total
liked
loose
about him.
cannon.
And so I was just reading a bit about it, and Letterman felt boxed in. There's quotes even from Picard's wife, Joyce, understanding the situation that Letterman was in, saying that this guy's got 10 writers who tell him all of the questions he's going to ask. He liked the idea of someone coming on that they could have had a pre-interview, told him what they were going to talk about, understood it. Picard comes out, and something happened between the pre-interview and this. Someone pissed him off. He saw something on TV. He took a bite of something weird.
That's right.
And he's in a bad fucking mood, and he's gonna yell at him, and he's gonna call out Letterman.
He's always
for
in
being
a bad mood.
He's gonna call Letterman
This
because
guy's got hemorrhoids for life.
So Picard eventually is gaining status, and at one point he was offered a talk show. And
Harvey Picard was offered a talk?
Yeah, they talk. This is one of the interviews they talk about it. And Harvey Picard's offered a talk show.
Wow.
And
I did not know that.
And he turns it down.
Oh.
And Letterman is asking him why he turned this show down. And Picard does this like really cute, like interesting thing that he's like, I mean, I'm a guy. I'm not gonna be controlled. I'm not gonna let people buy me out. I'm not gonna be a sellout. And Letterman's like, well, you're not gonna be a sellout like me. You're calling me a sellout. And Picard goes like, no, I'm not calling you a sellout because that would imply that you had something to sell out. It would imply that you had a message that's being suppressed. Like, this is what you want to be. And like, power to you, David. Like you got nothing interesting that you want to say. Like you are bullshit. So so how is someone going to control you? And you see Letterman's like, oh, well, I'm handsomer than you. It's really contentious and edgy. And getting to the peak of it is eventually Picard kept coming on the show and started railing against GE. And
well, no, wait a minute. All right. So you got to set it up.
Yeah.
Because his wife has gotten a political activist hair up her ass. And so she's involving herself in like telling the stories of like the children like
of
pretty much out
countries.
of nowhere.
As far as the movie portrays, I don't know.
She owned a comic book store, man. Come on.
God bless her. She went to the fucking Middle East and made a comic book about shit that matters. Like, that's cool.
I don't know. My buddy Ted Rawl went to Afghanistan twice, and he got fired from the LA Times. Come on. I mean,
come on? Aren't you proud of Ted for doing that?
Here's the thing, man. It's all out of context. The only build up into her. It seems in the movie, the way that whole thing is planned, it really comes completely out of the blue.
It does. like I agree that the film portrays it as she's
I
like,
don't know if it didn't come out of the blue, but she wasn't exactly a political cartoonist of 20 years before that happened.
yeah, it does make it. I agree. The assessment, it sounds like she just needed extra sadness in her life, and she
Right.
decided.
Right.
But
But her being gone does put a very special strain on Harvey Pekar, and he adopts some of her politicism and goes on
and he starts railing.
But the lead-in is great when he's backstage and he's got this T-shirt that says,
This is real too. Like you can watch this clip.
Is the clip on YouTube?
Yeah.
Oh, I gotta watch it.
He's
I
got
gotta
this
watch
shirt
it.
that says boycott NBC or something like that, and he goes out there and he starts railing.
And maybe he wasn't really gonna, pull his pants down all the way. But the intro, the way they do the intro, he really makes up his mind. Okay, I'm gonna let you have it
so
now.
that was not his final. I think they conflated two appearances.
Tell us.
My memory is that he comes out with this boycott NBC shirt, and that whole interview ends fairly cordially. He rails a bit against GE, which is the owner of NBC before they were bought by Cabletown, as they're called in 30 Rock.
Yeah.
But he calls out GE for essentially war crimes, and
right.
and Letterman is sweating in real time. But
they shoot it. It's interesting how they shoot it because they shoot it from behind.
Yeah, well, let me break down like what really happened and then what the movie did to sort of conflate it as the movie tricks. And so this is his second to last appearance. He's calling out.
But it seems like it's his last appearance in the movie.
In the movie they pulled those two together. Whereas that T-shirt, there was actually a later. It was the second one that they that was his last for a while. He was unofficially banned. He was banned, but then they later were like, we were just kidding. He calls out GE for as they rightly should be, and Letterman is sweating. But there's a piece of me that, do you remember? Did you see Man on the Moon?
Oh, of course, I love Man on the Moon.
So Andy Kaufman gets in a fight with a professional wrestler. Do you remember which wrestler that was?
No, but I'll look it up.
He gets in this fight, and he winds up getting his back broken on television. And was that Letterman, or I'm trying to think who else? It certainly wasn't Carson.
He wrestled a woman.
It must have been Letterman. I feel like. Well, his wrestling a woman thing was his whole phase. This was sort of the precursor to that, I think, or maybe it was.
Really, he wrestled a man before he wrestled the woman.
He got his ass kicked by a wrestler because he threw coffee in his face, and it was one of these quote unquote happenings that he did where he would do something controversial on live television. And
Jerry Lawler.
Yeah, Jerry Lawler. Yeah. He's a Cajun guy. Some ads playing when you pull up this clip. And it struck me this penultimate Letterman appearance might have been faked. The last one seems to be real. He really rails. He's not wearing his cool T-shirt anymore. In any case, the thing I've been leading up to is that the Letterman show, unusual for them, was going to licensed every clip of his appearance except for that notorious one where he got banned. And what it led them to do was to use Giamatti to play the scene where previously they cut into the actual clips. They had Giamatti reenact it, and they had an actor do a pretty bad David Letterman.
Pretty bad, and it's shot from behind.
Yeah,
that's what I think is interesting. Is everything else has been, whatever that's called. I'm losing my vocabulary.
Just from the front.
From the front. There's a word for that. Yeah. Not full frontal.
Front is forte.
That's different.
I didn't invent that word. But yeah, it's a reenactment that takes it to another place. And we just talk about the use of integrating live footage like that, where you have someone portraying a character and they show the real thing. There's a show on Netflix which I'll close to swear by called Narcos, which is about Pablo Escobar.
Yep.
And they show in reenactments very crazy things happening, and to ground you in reality will consistently cut to news camera footage of what you're watching from then with the real Escobar and these real people, just to make it clear to you that this shit, as we are showing it, happened.
Yeah.
And
by the way, that particular method of propaganda that you're talking about was invented, I believe, in about 1945, and this follows on the Louis Buñuel story that I just
Right.
told, where this guy La Rochelle, who was responsible for producing all the newsreel propaganda that would show before the movies, he decided to
President Truman today.
That's right. He decided to make this movie in 1945 called The House on 92nd Street. And yes, I do mean the Upper East Side 92nd Street.
Get the fuck out.
Yeah. And even though the house that they filmed was really on 93rd Street. Yeah. And supposedly, like, the conceit of the film was that it would be this docudrama film noir piece. They tried to pawn it off as film noir. The House on 92nd Street. It's got this film noir poster, and they set it up. It's got all of the voiceover narration.
Sounds like a film noir for people who don't know the Upper East Side.
It's on YouTube, and so it's supposedly the conceit of the film was that it used all this actual FBI footage, and these are real FBI men doing their job. And it's exactly what you're talking about. They folded together stuff. Of course, it was all baloney. The stuff was all filmed for this, to create this fiction. But it's just what you're talking about. This particular style
of the integration of real footage
is its origins are in American propaganda, wartime propaganda.
Yeah, this movie does some very interesting work in integrating different levels of realism, of documentariness, of docudrama.
Yep.
And it feels very justified because it's playing off of a comic book which is based entirely in real life. It gets away with these conceits that might feel contrived, that might feel like you're trying too hard, or you couldn't fully pull it off. And like I said at the beginning, is given through all of this, what you feel like you're seeing is not outsiders making a film, not adapting. This is not in the movie. There is a play that's an adaptation of his comic book. That and it's Donald Logue, one of my favorite actors, from this TV show Grounded for Life, but he's also in The Patriot and a million other things. And then Molly Shannon is playing his wife. This strikes you as an adaptation. This doesn't feel like an adaptation exactly. It is. It absolutely is. But it also feels like a transition from the original creators with the collaboration of some filmmakers to a different medium.
Yeah,
which is a really interesting thing to pull off.
It is the power of representational over presentational. It is very representational. When you're watching Hope Davis and Paul Giamatti, their performances are purely authentic, very authentic.
But also you've seen the real them, and you know that they're interacting, and they make a point of showing them interact. And there's even scenes where Giamatti and Freelander, like we've said before, are reacting to the actual people that they're playing, and they're watching them, and they're interested in their behaviors, and even like amused by them. And it is calling out its representationalness, and all of it is serving. I think
the Tao of Steve. I hate to interrupt you, but
Sure.
I just want to say, have you seen the Tao of Steve?
No.
Oh my God, Mike! If you're a Donald Logue fan, you've got to see the Tao of Steve.
Yeah,
This was his breakout performance. I realize I'm completely taking a side trek, but who knows if we'll ever get around to doing that on the podcast. But it really it's one of those transformative movies. And as soon as you see this guy, wow, this guy's got something special.
His God bless his family. His daughter was missing for a while. Did you?
Oh, that was horrible.
Yeah,
that was so scary.
But they found her.
Yeah, I retweeted all that stuff when I saw his tweets about it because it was so terrible, frightening.
It's one of those things where I don't know the backstory, and it's like I don't want to pry into the backstory. I'm just I'm glad that things
everything was okay.
Things worked out.
Yeah.
What I was just gonna say though is this movie is taking all of these meta steps of representation in doing it in this way that is not overly cerebral.
Uh-huh.
It is true to the uh,
Sorry.
anti-intellectualness of Harvey Pekar. No, I'm sorry, he's not anti-intellectual. He's just not intellectual per se. It is realist. It is
Well, he's working class. That's the beauty of this character. He's a very genuine working class guy, and I think that was kind of the beauty of him having him on Letterman. I think that's why Letterman dug him, was because he was this salt of the earth misanthrope working class guy
who wanted to know what everyone wants to know. And there's this thing that is very appealing and universal about it. He wants to know what he's getting paid.
Yeah.
You know? He's
Yeah.
There's one of the interviews, I don't think it's in the movie, but it's one of the things I saw is Letterman says to him, is like, so you got a lot of people talking to you about making movies and stuff. And Pekar says very matter of factly, like, wait, what people? What are you talking? Which ones? like he's just
he's
like,
not playing that game.
well, no, he's like, yeah, he's like people are offering me a lot of money.
Yeah,
like,
who are they?
Do you know something I don't know?
Right,
like,
exactly.
Like, what are they offering? Like, is it 10 million? Is it 10,000?
Yeah, he's unpretentious.
It's like, what is it's like, I'm not above talking.
He's grounded. He's totally grounded.
No, it's so much like this. It's like, he comes out and he's wearing a t-shirt and it's kind of ill-fitting. And he's like, this t-shirt is the company that releases my comic book. I'm getting paid $25. It's actually the logo is printed on the back of the shirt, so I'm wearing
it's my wife's merchandising.
Well, that's in the. He has this thing about the doll that he's made, but there's another clip where he's wearing a shirt and it's fitting really weird, and he's like, yeah, well, I'm actually wearing it backwards because I put the logo on the back and I didn't want to walk onto your show backwards to get the logo out there, but they're paying me $25. And then he also goes like,
see, I love this is the great backstory. You don't get this out of the movie. That scene's not in the movie.
It's not in the movie. And then in the same interview, he goes, I also, Steve McKenzie is my coworker. He now owes me $10 because I said his name on his show.
Nice.
Steve, if you want to wait till your next paycheck to pay me, that's cool.
Nice.
And it's like, you get a sense like he's very self-aware, and there's
I just lost $10 on a bet. You made me smart there.
What was that bet?
The Vegas odds were for McGregor.
Oh.
They had McGregor like 2-1. I bet a pal $10. And
were they really for McGregor?
Yeah. Vegas odds were favoring McGregor.
I think that was just people trying to make a buck is putting money on it, because I thought the odds were way for Mayweather.
Nope, not for Vegas, not Vegas. And if you want to,
it seemed closer than anyone expected.
Yeah,
it seemed. I mean, when you go one or the other, you think that like, oh, he's gonna just crush Mayweather's skull like that.
Hey, it went 10 rounds. I think it was. I really I respect what those guys did, and I think that all the people stuff that people were saying about it's ruining boxing. I thought it was a very interesting fight. Very interesting.
I didn't watch it. I was.
I didn't watch it, but I read it as it occurred.
Yeah. I saw a movie at the time. I saw this movie called The Real Cancun. Do you know about this movie?
No. Does it involve topless girls?
Yes.
I knew it did. How did I know that?
How did you know? Because it's The Real Cancun. It showed it.
Does it involve anything other than topless girls? Not really.
Do you know about the Spectacle?
How did I know that?
Do you know about the Spectacle Theater? It's in Williamsburg, here in New York City.
No,
and,
tell me.
They show $5 movies. It's an all-volunteer theater in a space that I think was formerly a bodega. It's really tiny.
Okay.
There's like 15 seats in it.
So it's like the Quad.
I think it's got to be even small. I haven't been to the Quad actually, but I think it's even smaller, and it's just like
the Quad cinema. The screen is about 6 inches bigger than this one.
Oh, okay. So yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot like that. And this they show this movie, The Real Cancun. It's the producers of the MTV's The Real World and Jackass, and it came out.
He's got Jimmy Leg. I didn't know he had Jimmy Leg.
It was filmed in 2003. Coincidentally,
Harvey Pekar had Jimmy Leg.
What's Jimmy Leg?
Jimmy Leg is sick of yourself.
Oh yeah,
like you can't stop.
There's a guy in my work who does that. We just hear this rattling.
It's called Jimmy Leg, man.
Jeff, cut it out.
Yeah, give him a shot.
And I gotta recommend this movie, The Real Cancun, because it is essentially a 90-minute episode of The Real World or whatever, but it is very
Tell me.
It really makes you look through a dark, dark, dark lens at these people. It seems way too self-aware. Like it was this peak of this reality TV show boom, and it is one of the most harrowing views of what American culture is. And here's the salient thing about it is it was filmed coincidentally during the invasion of Iraq, which is never mentioned. But to just see the headspace that American teens are at, and something about filming this real world, I just want to fuck, and like I don't give a shit about other people, and then holding those scenes a little bit longer than you're supposed to, and getting a little bit too close to these people, makes it a horror film in a sense. And you also get the sense that they did that on purpose. And it
Really?
was an amazing piece.
And what year was that made?
2003, during the invasion of Iraq. The Bush administration.
It has an aggregate score of 2.7 on IMDb, which is one of the lower ranking scores. But that doesn't mean anything. Aggregate ranking is baloney, people.
You have to take it from a meta perspective. From a straightforward perspective, it's a terrible film. But from
no, but hey, if you're looking at film from a critical perspective, you take all that stuff into account.
I'll swear by it. And there's also a character who just I want you to watch it to pick him out. He's baby Paul Ryan. He looks exactly like Paul Ryan, and he's in love with his childhood best friend, who's also there, and he's pining after her.
Ugly.
Don't
get me started.
And he brings an acoustic guitar to
No, he does not.
And he's just baby Paul Ryan. It's out of control.
Oh man! All right, so what was the James Franco was in
Spring Breakers.
Spring Breakers. What do you know about Spring Breakers? Any correlation between Cancun and Spring Breakers?
I imagine that this film, the real Cancun, was a very important inspiration.
That's what I want to hear.
I really think that it was, because it hits similar notes, and you have it's
okay. This is a good. I just want to say, Mike, this is
a good review.
This is a crucial moment in Le Grande Bouffe history, because we could. Next 2 episodes, we could do real Cancun and Spring Breakers.
I would love nothing more.
We are going to do it.
Let's do it.
Ladies and gentlemen,
this is how it's made.
This is the shit that you come on to listen to the Grande Bouffe for, and this is the reason that you should give us $5 a month through Patreon, because we give you the juicy bologna that you cannot get. We give you the pepper salami that you have to buy at 92nd and Madison, where Helene Hanff in 84 Crossing, I can't even say the name of the movie. Helene Hanff, that's where she used to buy her pepper salami. You get your pepper salami from the source at 92nd and Madison from us for $5 a month.
I've never had pepper salami in my life.
Really? Come on, you've had it. The salami has a little piece of pepper in it.
Paprikash?
No, you gotta break it out, like the chunks of little hard peppers.
Yeah.
Really, you never had that?
No, I'm not from there.
84 Charing Cross Road. I just watched it yesterday. I have to say, I felt like a crybaby at the end of the movie.
Yeah.
Is
this on your walking tour now?
Yeah. It's got Anthony Hopkins and Judi Dench. Judi Dench is unbelievably young in the movie. She plays Anthony Hopkins.
She cute?
She is cute. Yeah, she plays his wife. She's a stoic Irish woman, so she's a little tightly wound. But Anne Bancroft is phenomenal.
Yeah.
Fans will remember her as the bad influence in The Graduate.
Yeah, she's Mrs. Robinson.
And I've always thought of Anne Bancroft only as Mrs. Robinson. But if you watch 84 Charing Cross Road, that will cure you of that.
She was
She's fantastic actress.
Wife
Unbelievable actress.
Was she Mel's wife, or was she...
I can't remember whose wife she was. Yeah, they had a kid. I think his name was Max.
Yeah, it's Mel Brooks. Mel Brooks and Max Brooks. Yeah.
Oh, she was Mel Brooks' wife. Really?
Yeah.
They were together forever.
Pretty sure, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, Max Brooks.
Wow, we had good taste. That's all I can say.
Max Brooks, author of the zombie... he's into the zombies. He wrote a book about the zombie apocalypse, and I think made a movie.
All right, so we're going to do it next time. This is reason, ladies and gentlemen, if you have any inclination to spend a little money on Le Grande Bouffe, The Big Feast, we are going to do, the next 2 episodes are going to be The Real Cancun, which was made in 2003, and then Spring Breakers, which was made just 9 years later in 2012. We're going to connect the dots.
Oh, they're there.
And then guess what comes next? Shocktober. Shocktober. We are revving up for a Shocktober like you gonna blow your mind.
Your minds will be blown.
Shocktober.
And then someone will eat your minds off the wall.
You think last Shocktober was good?
There's nothing.
We got some surprises for this Shocktober. It's gonna blow you out your seat. I'll give one little hint away. Just one little hint.
A little spoiler, y'all.
One little spoiler. Toby Hooper just passed away. Yes, one of them is going to be the Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Woohoo! That clipped right there, but yeah. Woo-hoo.
Mike hasn't seen that movie.
I've seen the Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Really?
Yeah, Leatherface.
You saw it?
Oh yeah, I had IFC growing up. I watched that.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Have I watched it in full as an adult? No. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, it is a surprisingly frightening
Texas
film.
Chainsaw Massacre from 2011, right?
And I just heard an interview with Toby Hooper and Terry Gross, and he was such a calm person. You wouldn't guess that his personality would be so restrained. But what he did when he made that movie, because he wanted to get a PG rating for that film. And
what?
Yeah, I'm telling you the truth. And so,
well, all you had to do is just show tits for 20 minutes.
No, just listen. He was in contact with the ratings board through the whole movie. And he said, what can I show? What can I show? And he pitched them on the scene. You know the scene, and we'll disclose it right here. It involves a meat hook.
Yes, that's the scene I was thinking of, actually.
Yeah. And how he could pass that off as a PG.
Wait, what is it rated?
Rated R.
Yeah. Okay. So,
but if he hadn't done that, for sure it would have been X.
Yeah.
And yeah. Well, in Shocktober is going to be a big month for the Grande Bouffe. It was a great month last year. It was certainly, I think, as a month goes. As I can remember,
it was the most thematic.
It was the most thematic.
Toby Hooper recently revealed to really not really have been the director of Poltergeist.
What?
It was rumored since the days of the set that Steven Spielberg was the secret director.
No way.
That was the rumor forever because he was supposed to be directing. I'm not sure which one it was because that was like 83.
Wait a minute. Steven Spielberg directed Poltergeist?
Yes.
I'm so glad you told me this now because I'm working on a Steven Spielberg director series for my director series.
Yeah. No, it's there's mention of it as being rumor in Easy Riders and Raging Bulls. And I forget who it was, but there was some people who I think after the death of Toby Hooper felt comfortable saying like, yeah, I mean, like he was there, but like he was kind of the AD, And it was known that Steven Spielberg was there as a producer, like an EP, as a special effects sort of like a helper, but he was signed to another movie, and he was not legally allowed to be directing a film at the same time.
1982.
So what Spielberg film? What film would it have been? E.T.
Well, he was a writer on the screenplay. Spielberg was a writer on the script.
Yeah, and he's an EP.
He's uncredited. He's listed as a director on IMDb. He's listed as an uncredited director.
Really?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I think the story's now out now that it was really kind of him. What Spielberg movie came out in 1982 or 3 that he was busy working on?
Well, in just a moment, Michael, I'll tell you.
Right. So riffing. This is really where I expected the end of our episode about American Splendor to wind up.
Well, it came off as a complete shock because there was so much new information that appeared during the time that we were talking. So he had done E.T.
Was it
1982?
So it was roughly simultaneous to E.T. I think the story is that he's making that film. And he's signed, and he's like just a workaholic, and he
That is so problematic. I guess in November we're gonna have to do Poltergeist and E.T.
I think I haven't seen ET forever. I would
Me
love it.
either. I know.
Yeah.
I know.
And we get into this whole thing with Poltergeist is whether they were actually the mom in it. Supposedly she was swimming with an actual corpse. There's a whole thing I keep hearing, but it's supposedly that they didn't use a prop skeleton; they used a real skeleton, which.
So what? Big deal.
I also feel like
and corpses
it doesn't make any sense.
So what? You brought in a cadaver? Whoopie shit! I've seen cadavers. You ever saw a cadaver? I was 7 years old when I saw my first cadaver.
I've read your screenplay. I think I think you've been around to cadavers too much, maybe.
When I was a kid, my dad taught standard first aid to the police academy in Richmond, Virginia, and so every Tuesday night, my mom and I would go and do a full standard first aid course with the police academy. And when I was about 7...
With that guy who made the helicopter noises and Hightower and Gutenberg, just hanging out with all of them.
So when I was about 7, Jerry Harmon was his name, was my dad's name. He's dead now. And the guy who had the heart attack. And we had this surgeon from MCV, Medical College of Virginia. His name was Dr. Norvell. I will never forget his name. And he invited the class to go over and visit the gross anatomy lab at Medical College of Virginia after class that night. Class led at about 10 o'clock.
Gross anatomy?
You're gonna find out more. And so I was 7, as I had already said. And my parents took me over with, a handful of other people and Dr. Norvell, and we went into the basement of the Medical College of Virginia off of Broad Street. And as soon as we walked into the room, there was the pungent smell of formaldehyde. And if you've never smelled formaldehyde, I can tell you it's quite disturbing and pungent. There was bright fluorescent lights, and to our right, there was a huge stainless steel table that was just covered in organs. There were pancreases and lungs and hearts and all sorts of stuff. And then, as far as the eye could see, to the left, there were rows and rows of stainless steel tables with cadavers. And the heads were wrapped with plastic, and there was twine wrapped around the necks. And I asked my dad, why are they all dark? And he said, because those are black people, son. And we stayed in the room for about a half hour.
What?
I'm just telling you what happened,
Okay.
man. I'm just telling you my experience. And so, we walked through, and, there were interns, and, it's like 11 at night, and, past my bedtime. But, there's interns, and they've got, they're pulling apart all these cadavers and pulling, these internal organs
I just
out.
clicked into your story, and it's fucking insane.
That's right. That's right.
What?
Yeah, I'm telling you what happened when I was 7.
Okay.
So, needless to say, I went home and had my little 7-year-old nightmares.
Yeah.
And then I go to school. I was going to William J. Fox School in Richmond, Virginia. And, of course, you're a kid, so you're like, hey, man, you know what I did last night? I went and saw these dead bodies.
Sorry, is that Michael's father?
That's right. I don't think so. That's a good question, though. And somehow, of course, the teachers got wind of what the little Cole had been doing. And so they sent me to a shrink, Mike.
Yeah.
And I had to go to talk to a counselor. And then I went to this shrink, and they plunked down all these Rorschach ink blots.
Well, this is not that long post.
This is about 1970.
Yeah. I mean,
pre-Watergate.
Yeah, post Bundy.
I don't know about all that, but anyway, so I had to pass the whole. I had to pass through the psychiatric test for how traumatized I was from my experiences of seeing cadavers when I was 7.
Well, on the IMDb charts, where did you pass in terms of being traumatized by all of that?
I don't know. I saw The Exorcist when I was 12, and I was okay with that.
That's about when I watched The Exorcist with my mom, and I freaked the fuck out. And I made her put in the other movie that we rented from Blockbuster, which was the Wedding Singer.
I had already read the book, and so I was pretty prepared.
You read the book of The Wedding Singer? That's cool.
No. The Exorcist. William Peter Blatty. Yeah. First rated R movie I ever saw was Fist of Fury, though, with Bruce Lee. 1 month before he died. And I had to go in the lobby and barf after the ice scene where the bodies are inside the ice and the buzzsaw cuts into the...
Ooh.
Yeah. And then I saw Airport 77 and I barfed at that movie And I thought that was the thing about it. Like, anytime you saw an R-rated movie, I thought you barfed.
I think movies just make you barf, Cole.
But I didn't barf over the cadavers.
Airline 77, right?
Airport 77.
Airport. That's what the airplane movies were directly parodying.
That's right.
Right.
They weren't parody. They were for real. Those were action dramas. Those were not spoofs.
What, airplane?
Airport 77.
No. Airport 77 is what airplane.
Oh.
It's like,
Right.
It's those.
No, you're right.
Those same people, those brothers, they're still who make like all the date movies and like the This Is Sparta, whatever, all those shitty parodies. Those are so weird. They're so specific and just like
Abrams and Zucker.
Yeah, the Zuckers. Oh my God,
Well, Abrams and Zucker. They're not Zuckers.
I thought there were multiple Zuckers. You know who the Zuckers are? Us. America.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. Well, on that note, ladies and gentlemen, thank you all for listening. All of our peeps that we have in the UK and Australia, all these far-flung places where you dare to listen to Cole and Mike ramble on as we do.
Against the cold and the heat and the totalitarianism, you subscribe. Or do you? Do you just go to SoundCloud and pull us up each week? Do you just search for us? Do you wait for your search engine optimization to bring us to your ears? Or do you go into iTunes and write us a review and subscribe on your favorite podcatcher and send us $5, $10, I don't know, $176.32 a month?
A month.
Like, that would be great.
We're talking to you people in the UK and France and Canada and Australia and Mexico and Sweden and the Republic of Korea.
A few of your economies
Switzerland
are better than ours.
I think several of those are.
If you're in the EU, what excuse do you have?
Mike, how do you say Qatar?
So it's either Qatar or Qatar. And
I never know the answer to this. Because I noticed that we have a listener in Qatar.
So I had some family that was stationed there, and they said Qatar. But maybe that's how they say it on the military base there. But I've heard both.
All right, so maybe you'll help us, listener in Qatar
or Qatar.
Let us know. Get back to us. Let us know. And hey, if you have some favorite movie that you'd like for us to cover on the show, let us know.
Yeah.
Any of you, anybody in the UK or France or Canada.
Also, if you're Adam Curtis, I love you.
Adam Curtis, you have to, next time you're in Manhattan, I'll buy you lunch and beers at the Blind Tiger, and you come on the show.
I'll buy you a Starbucks gift card.
Nice.
A switchblade. Yep. And a hat with a spy camera in it.
Whoa.
Yeah.
That's heavy duty, Mike. You're generous.
I'm regretting offering it, and I hope his trip is synchronistic to a paycheck cycle.
I think the knife is a bad move because that might set him up for failure in this country.
Yeah, you think you should have a knife? I'm buying him a big gun.
No.
I'll hook him up. I'll give him what he needs.
I just want to say, Paul Giamatti, we love you.
We love you, man.
He's a New Yorker. We love Paul Giamatti.
He plays every man.
He's a regular at my pal's gym.
Oh yeah?
Yeah.
In LA?
No, here.
He lives here.
Yeah. He lives here.
He's making millions. The show, not the amount of money.
Yeah, he goes to his gym over on the west side.
I want to see him over there.
I know.
He works out.
Just saying. Yeah, he's got a trainer. Trainer is very protective.
Yeah.
Don't come near my guy.
Back up.
Yeah. It's Giamatti, don't look. Don't stare. Yeah. Don't stare too long. That's right.
What? Why are you looking sideways at my guy?
Yeah, it's my guy. My guy. Now you're a guy. My guy.
It's my guy.
That's right. All right, people. Thanks everybody for listening. I guess coming at you as we promised is going to be Spring Breakers and
The Real Cancun.
The Real Cancun, directed by Rick de Oliveira. Please remember to turn your cell phones off when you're walking, driving, riding bicycle, or watching a movie.